I live in Moore, Oklahoma, in a one-story rental off 12th Street where the roofs all remember baseball-sized hail and the fences remember which way the wind ran last time. I'm 40, married to Hannah, dad to a 6-year-old who answers to Ben when he isn't being Lightning McQueen. I work nights as a 911 dispatcher for the county. If you ask my mother, I sit in a chair and tell people where the fire trucks go. If you ask my body, I carry storms on my back. Our room is low and cold and full of screens. CAD maps with polygons that look like arguments. Radios stacked so high they feel like a choir. Headsets that still smell faintly of other people's shifts. When we aren't taking calls, we count seconds. Ring to answer, answer to dispatch, dispatch to wheels rolling. We're taught to talk like pilots. Short, specific, no extras. You learn the tones by heart. Sheriff's primary, EMS page, fire's warble. You also learn the weather signature that eats minutes. A supercell tearing its cap off and deciding which subdivision it wants to hate. I was 15 during the 2013 tornado, old enough to remember the color the sky turned and young enough to think lying in a bathtub would save me because the TV said so. By the time I joined the PSAP, the old guys had stories from '99 and the May after that, same streets, different debris. It's not if, they say when a new dispatcher starts. It's when. On the first Wednesday of every month, we test the sirens at noon. Once, when Ben was 3, he cried so hard he hiccuped for an hour. I told him the sound was like a big dog on our side. He made me promise the dog knew our names. My brother, Mason, lives 2 exits south. A roofer who does storm chasing on days off with more enthusiasm than sense. He texts me pictures of structure in a wall cloud like it's a new baby. He's the one who taught me to read wind like handwriting. To see the greenish bruise on the horizon that means a storm has found muscle. He also taught me the bad habits I unlearned later. Standing under overpasses, trusting the myth of the ditch, believing in South Side safe. We grew up watching Gary England like church. In our house, the radar was apparent. The day that made a seam in my life started like any other May that has plans. Dew Point rude. Cape like a teenager. Morning clouds broke and the sun put fuel down on the prairie like a careless arsonist. By 2 p.m., a PDS watch, particularly dangerous situation, painted our map red. Gonna be a long one, my supervisor said, and slid a box of Pop-Tarts onto the console like communion. Hannah texted a photo of Ben wearing his bike helmet because the kindergarten teacher told them to bring one, just in case. He grinned with all the teeth he still had. I typed back, good. You and Boomer to Alvarez's shelter if warning. Don't wait for me. Boomer is our mutt. Twice as brave as smart. I don't get to be a husband or a dad during warnings. I get to be a voice. When the Polygon squares our street, I call Hannah from my cell in the gap between a welfare check and a chest pain. Go now, I say, and I hear her moving, cabinet doors, the beeping of our weather radio reminding us it's doing its job. Across the room, a rookie watches me talk to my wife and then to a stranger and then to a deputy and learns how to keep his heart from spilling. At 4:10, the first hail report drops north of Newcastle like gravel thrown by a mad hand. The radar hooks in that way you don't need a degree to respect. Power flashes on the live shots make the horizon stutter. The chat room with the weather service tightens. Significant rotation. Debris. I key the county page and send the same words I've heard sent by other hands. Take shelter now. Interior room, lowest floor. Cover your head. If you're in a vehicle, do not shelter under an overpass. I picture Ms. Alvarez, our neighbor, unlocking her in-ground box and calling to Hannah, Mija, vámonos. I picture Ben holding his helmet with both hands like a ticket. The room quiets in a way only dispatch rooms can. More sound, fewer voices. Calls stack. Sirens heard. Cloud shapes described like animals. One man yelling that his neighbor's trampoline is in his pecan tree, and if that isn't a sign, then what is? We log them all. We triage. We wait for the moment the phone becomes a lifeline instead of a rumor. A wall cloud crosses the river. The teacher in me that never happened starts measuring the distance to schools because you always count the schools first even when you don't say it out loud. At 4:32, my brother texts, dropping south edge, 4th and Eastern, big. He sends a picture that looks like God is teaching us perspective. I type don't be dumb but only get to don't before the next call lands. The sound a tornado makes does not travel through phones, not exactly. What travels is breath, the way it disappears all at once when a world changes shape. 911. What is the address of your emergency? We're in the closet. Oh God. It's here. The call bounces in through a cell tower already thinking about giving up. I get an intersection. I mark it. I send it to fire. Put on the mattress, I say, which is muscle memory in counties like ours. You tell me when the noise stops. She counts seconds like beads. I count units rolling. Her voice goes watery and then the world on her end is a blender I can't reach into. The wedge drops into town like it paid for the right. Live shots find it. Then live shots lose it because debris and power outages don't respect programming. The S hits TVs late for some, early for others. The sirens are as dumb as anyone ever accused them of being, shouting across the entire city like a drunk uncle when only a slice needs the yelling. The wireless emergency alerts land where the polygons sip the towers. Hannah's phone chimes in Ms. Alvarez's shelter. Ms. Alvarez's sister's phone, on cricket, doesn't. Every dispatch room has a moment when eyes meet. Ours is now. Across 4 consoles we catch each other and nod. Small, like the pregame slap, like the sign of the cross without religion. The consoles vibrate with radio. Sheriff's deputies stack at 19th. Fire is already staging at Brink. EMS says, "We will not go in until the wind stops trying to take the ambulance." People call from bathrooms, from hallways, from their cars, from a stalled van beneath an overpass. No, not there. From a daycare where they do not say the word children because the mouth refuses. Hannah's call comes in on my cell between the formal cries. We're in, she says, breathless. And I can hear Ben because there is no sound like your child being brave for you. Helmet on, I say, and then, stay. Like she's a dog and I hate myself and don't. Because clear verbs are oxygen. Boomer whines. Ben shushes him. Ms. Alvarez prays in Spanish and I try to remember any of mine. I have to go, I tell her. I know, she says. The call takes my pulse with it when it goes. The building shakes. It is engineered not to care and it cares anyway. The fluorescent lights blink and hold. Our generator hums like a promise kept by taxes. The storm passes over the PSAP a half-mile north. The sound it makes in my bones is a deletion. After the freight train metaphor comes the part no one teaches you. The quiet where everyone checks if their ribs are still organized. Then every phone in the county tries to speak at once. CAD becomes a scroll of nouns. Entrapment, collapse, gas leak, injury. A man who cannot say wife says her and then gives me an address and then breaks our connection and I call him back with a hand that remembers the shape of his number. A teacher whispers, we're okay, and I make a note to send police because there will be parents who cannot behave in their grief. A kid calls from under a tire and tells me he can taste dirt. I put him on speaker and talk him into a pocket of air while we bounce the nearest engine around downed lines on 27th. My brother stops texting. Dispatchers are professional catastrophizers. The skill keeps us alive and robs us of sleep. I keep the corner of my screen parked on a grid where I think Mason might be and send a deputy there under the pretense of possible entrapment. Because not being professional would ruin this job and being a person would ruin me. The deputy says the road is gone. I take the teacher off speaker. I tell a woman to put her baby in a car seat if she insists on driving, and then I tell her to stop insisting and get out of the car because debris will make a liar of her tires. I hear my supervisor breathe. We need the guard. Like a wish. I hear a firefighter say, I'm going to break this door now. Like a sacrament. The all clear is not an all clear. Not ever. It's a change of verbs. We go from hide to search. From don't to do. Fire forms grid teams. Deputies shut down looters while pretending we are better than we are. EMS fills the triage tarps with humans who look like they've been erased and penciled back. The daycare calls us before we call them. Head count, right? Injuries, minor. They will not let the cameras in. We will take the heat for that. None of us will care. At 7:10, 3 hours into the part of your life people will talk about when they need a story of being from here, I clock out because the policy says I can if my family was in the Polygon. I shouldn't. I do. I drive a truck that smells like wet maps through streets that don't remember their names. Hannah stands on a curb in a sweater she didn't leave the house in, someone's thrift store donation from 3 events ago. And Ben is wearing his bike helmet and a dinosaur pajama top and one croc and no shoes because you cannot have everything. I hold them the way people hold trees during storms. Ms. Alvarez says, "Estamos?" and pats my shoulder and then starts humming, which is what she does when she would like to cry privately later. I find Mason's truck 2 hours after dark by following a trail no one would call a road. It is lodged against a pole, windows gone, world inside turned to mosaic. The deputy who meets me looks too young and too old. I identify him because someone has to. The coroner's lights throw a blue that looks wrong on our fields. The storm has put the stars back where they belong and I want to punch them for their audacity. I sit on the tailgate and a chaplain no one called finds me because chaplains have a sixth sense for men who do not know how to start sentences that include the word was. Grief in Oklahoma smells like wet drywall and smoke and Lysol over mud. We bury our dead on schedules the weather corrects. The donation center at the church fills with baby clothes, bottled water, and exactly 0 pairs of men's work socks until someone posts a photo, and the next day there are nothing but socks. I carry boxes when I can't sit. At the PSAP we sit in a circle in the training room and not talk until someone says, "I can't shake the sound of that kid swallowing dirt." And then we all talk like we invented talking. The critical incident guy says words about brain wiring and how tornado sirens will move in through your ear and rent the space behind your ribs until you charge them back rent. "Breathe when the test hits," he says. "Breathe before the test hits," he corrects. I sleep with my boots by the bed for a month. I startle at refrigerators. They cycle like distant sirens. And at the microwave when its fan catches a pitch my body translates as "go now." Ben refuses to sleep without his helmet on the nightstand. Hannah doesn't argue. We buy a safe room with money that was supposed to be for a vacation. An installer comes in a truck still wearing mud from the last disaster and bolts a steel closet into the corner of our garage while Boomer supervises. When he leaves, I put 2 bike helmets, water, shoes, and a whistle on the floor inside like a ritual. I write "no overpass" on a sticky note because my muscles keep wanting what they learned wrong in 1999. At work, the after-action tastes like metal. We pull call logs, radio times, GPS tracks. We find the seconds that collapsed and try to build them back into minutes next time. The sirens did what sirens do. Too much, too loud, not enough, too late, depending on where the wind pushed sound. The WA boxes did what the carriers do, hit most, miss some. The Spanish language alerts came second because the system thinks in English first unless you go stab the right buttons. I stab. I ask for a policy change. The county emergency manager surprises me by saying yes in the meeting and not later in email. We add templates for Spanish, Vietnamese, and the shorthand of neighbors. Get low. In helmet. Shoes. No windows. Feels small. It is not. I go louder than I knew I could tolerate. The day after Mason's funeral, I stand in front of 6 dozen people at the rec center and explain polygons with a pointer I borrowed from Ben. I show them how to build a shelter tree. People on your block with basements and safe rooms who agree to unlock when the watch drops. Ms. Alvarez stands up and says, in Spanish, that her door is open when the sirens argue with the sky. We print chip clip cards for refrigerators, helmets, shoes, whistle, ID, meds, dog, and pretend that lists are charms even when we know charms don't reroute wind. A builder raises his hand and asks who will pay for safe rooms in rentals. I say the city should. Someone claps. The city sends a planner to the next meeting. She brings forms that smell like paper and possibility. The weather service invites me to a spotter class even though I already have certificates I don't hang. I go anyway. In the back row, a kid with a haircut like the newscasters asked about overpasses. The instructor shut that down with a practice grimace and a photo from our county that makes me want to throw up even 10 years later. After, I talk to the kid in the parking lot and tell him how much I love the sky and how little it loves me back and still how I will drive into it for the rest of my life because it is ours and some romances repay you anyhow. Hannah and I fight about ridiculous things. Why she didn't grab the wedding album. Why I can't say Mason's name without making a noise. Why I keep the safe room shoes lined up like soldiers. Then we sit on the garage floor and cry with our backs against the new steel and Boomer's head on our knees, and we don't say sorry. We just breathe. Grief makes you present whether you meant to practice or not. In August, the county commission takes up community shelter incentives. The man who ran on taxes like sin looks at me like I'm the one who sent the wedge. I tell them about the daycare's headcount and the boy under the tire and Ms. Alvarez's open door, and the difference between a siren you hear and a neighbor who texts you now. I tell them the cheapest safe room I've seen and the receipts I've carried in my pocket like a talisman. They pass a grant for low-income installs, modest but loud in the right households. Later, the school district adopts helmets and shoes like we invented it. We didn't. We just said it again until it stuck. At Thanksgiving, we set a place for Mason. Ben puts a toy storm truck there and warns us not to move it. After pie, I open the garage and show my father the safe room again because he needs to feel the hinge and say, "Solid," and slap it like an old appliance. He tells me a story I've heard about Virgil and the time the wind took his barn roof in '74 and how my grandfather nailed boards until his hands bled and then sat on the porch drinking coffee like he'd just done the most normal thing. "It's what men do," he says, and I don't have the energy to correct his verbs. Instead, I pour him more coffee and we watch the sky go purple in a way that says maybe not today. The first spring after, the weather forgets to be delicate. We test the sirens and I breathe before they call noon and not after. I teach Ben to crouch and cover his neck without making it a game. He turns it into one anyway and insists Boomer needs a helmet too. We put one on the dog. He hates it. We keep it. On a Tuesday with a watch the size of a county and a humidity you could swim through, I go on console for B shift. We've built a set of scripts I can run like muscle now, English, Spanish, 2 sentences that mean the same tight thing. When the Polygon falls, I push them both without asking. We've mapped every shelter tree anyone would trust me with and taped it to the side of my screen. When Mrs. Patel on 7th calls and says she can't find her grandson and she hears the wrong dog outside, I page her block captain and get him running before the radar decides anything. Dispatch is chess and breath-holding. Tonight it is also a kind of choir. The storm is smaller than the one that took Mason but meaner in personality. A rope becomes a stovepipe, becomes a wedge in the span of an ad break. I watch spotter dots and try not to anthropomorphize their bravery. A man calls from a parking lot with a bass in his voice the weather likes to sample. "I can't see it," he says. "That is not a reason to drive," I say. He laughs because he's scared and then he does what I say because I sound like I borrowed his mother. We lose power to a section of the grid we know too well. Fire stations go to generator with that humming pride. The sirens keep yelling because they know only the pronoun all. On the radio, a firefighter I drank bad coffee with last week says, "We're going to force this door." And in the background I hear wind and the sound of a Halligan learning where the hinge is. A teen calls me whispering from inside a Quick Trip bathroom and says her boss told her to stay open. "Your boss is wrong," I say, and wonder what it takes to get people to respect a sky that is older than their cash drawer. I keep her on the line while she and 2 customers climb into a cooler and pull milk crates over their heads. And when it passes she says, "We're cold." Like the punchline we earned. At 8:04 p.m. a call rides in broken and strange. "Pinned," he says. "Car." I get enough to drop a pin. "Are you bleeding?" Ask. "I don't know," he says, which is the truest we get. I talk him into a breath pattern that belongs to labor and athletes and men who drove under something they shouldn't. Engines get near and then have to go around a pile of roof. I tell him he is not alone even before I hear the glass break and the voice that comes with Halligan work. Later, when I get home, I will hear Hannah say, "You say that a lot," and I will explain that in my line of work. Telling the truth is the only magic. The event ends in a whimper and a tangle of small tragedies that did not become names on news crawls. The daycare does a head count and gets the number it started with plus a hamster someone shoved in their hoodie. The woman in the Quick Trip throws away an entire shelf of milk like a sacrifice to an older god. Mrs. Patel's grandson fell asleep under the bed. The block captain takes a selfie with him and the boy flashes a peace sign and a gap-toothed grin. 3 roofs learn humility. 1 tree learns flight. A trampoline decides to meet a fence. I don't get the call I still expect. There is a truck you need to identify. I go home and sit in the safe room anyway and let my heart catch up to the part of the story where everyone is back inside. On the anniversary of the day we lost my brother, I drive out to the new stand of saplings the city planted along the multi-use path and find the one with his little plaque. I bring Ben and our dog and a bike helmet that has outlived its head. We tie the helmet to the tree with twine, and I tell Ben about supercells and about his uncle's laugh and about how some people will always run toward whether not because they are trying to die but because they love telling the rest of us what it is about to do. We say his name out loud. The wind answers in the negative space between leaves. Here is what I know, and it isn't a moral so much as a list taped to our safe room door and to the inside of the console where eyes can find it when breath runs thin. Don't wait for the siren. Sirens are for people outside. Don't drive toward green. Helmet, shoes, whistle. Interior room, lowest floor, no windows, cover your neck. No overpasses. No ditch unless the ditch is all you have. Lock your shelter when the watch drops and text your block. Open. Learn your neighbors' names before you need to shout them. Speak alerts in the languages people dream in. Teach your kid to be bored and brave at the same time. I am a man in more who listens to other people's worst minutes and hands them the next one. When the sky bruises and the dog howls and the phone sings the long tone, I put my hand on the steel of our safe room and breathe. Then I sit down at the console, push 2 buttons that mean now, and say what needs saying in a voice that knows the price of waiting.